Hi, welcome to Business with Shani and Sandra. I'm Shani,
And I'm Sandra.
and today we have a very special guest. His name is Osvaldo Cuban of Cuban and Associates. He is the solo practitioner and owner of his own law firm.
And we're here today to discuss Mr. Caban's entrepreneurship and his community service in in New York City. First of all, how long have you been in business? First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, yes. Thank you for inviting me, ladies. It was a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Yes. Well, as I spoke to you about earlier, I've been practicing law since 1989. That's when I was admitted to the bar in New York State, and I've been on my own since 1990. I've had my own office. I first started out with a partner. Her and we broke up years later, but now I have my own office and pretty successful. I'm happy to be practicing law here in New York.
And tell us, prior to you starting your own firm, to say, how long were you practicing law with another company, I should say?
Yes, well, when I graduated law school, I graduated in 1987. I started working with the Legal Aid Society. That was my first job, and what I did was I practiced in community poverty programs throughout New York. We basically represented tenants that were being evicted. We were representing people that needed benefits in order to stay in their apartments. The one-shot deal is called to pay the rent, pay the arrears. So I worked with Legal Aid Society first, and then I went to the Commission of Human Rights, where I practiced discrimination against people that were discriminated against in housing area, employment, based on the 7 categories of discrimination here in New York State.
Oh, 7 categories of discrimination?
Yes.
What's that?
Well, the first category is based on race, religion. The second category, national origin, sexual preference,
basically the EEO.
disability.
Right,
yes,
right,
yes,
okay.
Right.
all those categories. Yes,
Okay.
that's so. What we did in the Commission of Human Rights, people that used to not be allowed to receive rent apartments in certain areas, they would come to the Commission of Human Rights and they complained that because I'm black or because I'm Latino or because I'm Asian, they didn't rent me that apartment. So we used to set up scams, so to speak. People, decoys, go in and see if that actually happened in those apartments, and then we would prosecute the landlord based on this.
Okay, now, with that said, how many times did you find that the scheme or, the scam was actually true, what they were being discriminated based on their color?
Well, in actuality, I would say about 60% of the time.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that there was an intended discriminatory practice based on a landlord's history.
Now, when they were prosecuted, what happened to them?
Well, usually when they were prosecuted, the landlord would have to pay that individual triple damages. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, the 3 times amount, the rent amount, or allow that person to rent the apartment if that person still wanted the apartment.
Do you find that most people still wanted the apartment, or they just took the money?
Well, no, most people wanted the apartment. I think that in
Really?
New York City, with the prime locations, areas that you really want to move into, people really want the apartments. Apartments are more valuable in the long run than money, especially if the apartment is stabilized, rent stabilized.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just to get back to the business point of
Yeah.
view, prior to you establishing your own company, how long did you work for the Legal Aid Society?
Yeah, I worked for the Legal Aid Society for approximately a year and a half. I worked for this Commission of Human Rights for approximately almost 2 years, a year and a half around the time. Then I went to a private law firm, O'Dwyer and Bernstein. And at O'Dwyer and Bernstein, I learned how to practice personal injury medical malpractice.
So you was able to gain tons of valuable experience to create your own company, obviously.
Exactly, yes, yes. And I realized in O'Dwyer and Bernstein that I was able to generate my own client base, and that's most important thing when you practice in law. You need to have clients come into your office in order to make a living and also to give back to the community.
Right.
So I found that when I worked with Dwight and Bernstein, I was able to bring in clients, and this young lady and I, who we went to law school together, we left and opened our own office together.
When you say, because this is so important, as we're talking about business here,
Yes.
this is what our show's about,
Yes.
giving people valuable information.
Yes.
And you say to bring in business.
Yes.
What did you do to bring in the business?
Well, it's all about being personable. You have to go out there in the community and reach out to the community, do pro bono work, which I do now. I go to to high schools throughout New York City,
Really?
and I give pro bono presentations on to high school students how to stay in school and how to succeed and try to excel in a society or system that really doesn't want to see you succeed. I found myself when I went to high school, I liked school when I was in high school. I grew up in I was born in Brooklyn, New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant, East New York, that area, and then I moved over to Queens, Astoria, Queens. I grew up in projects, the Ravenswood projects in Queens. I went to Long Island City High School in Queens. So I realized when I liked school, so I realized that my guidance counselor wasn't guiding me to the right schools. So after I graduated, high school and college, I realized that there was a whole system in place that steers our children to certain areas. They don't want our kids to go to schools.
Right.
So what I do is I give back to the community. I try to inspire the youth to try to stay in school.
That was another question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a good point. You go back and get back to the community,
right.
and give these children knowledge in terms of how to succeed.
Exactly.
Now, specifically, if you had a young person interested in the law, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of, pursuing the